All right, welcome back to another episode of The Whole Lawyer. It's your boy, it's your host, Akeem D. Earl, and today we are talking about failure. I've been a lawyer for about 3.5 years now, and I've had my fair share of failures and mess ups and screw ups. And coming into the profession, it feels like, at least for me, it felt like everybody was doing everything right, and I was the only one capable of screwing up. And especially coming into this profession straight out of law school, and there's no more hand holding, there's no more syllabuses, there's no more teachers checking to see if you handed in the assignment, there's no more TAs and all these guardrails around you in law school, and there's nothing wrong with them. But once you get out into the profession, it's like, now go and be and do, and you're like, whoa, am I ready for this? And I wanted to create this episode because if you're anything like me, dealing with failures in this profession, I want to hopefully, by the end of this episode, encourage you that these failures should not be made into who you are, but just as lessons for you to keep going. But before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It'll be very helpful. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok. Just type in The Whole Lawyer, follow our page, join the community. We'll be in the comments, laughing it up, learning, reacting, and just having a grand old time. So join the community, man. Follow us on all those platforms, and it'll help us grow the platform, and we'll be able to give you more content, more amazing content like this episode. All right. So, like I said, I've been practicing for about 3.5 years, and I have missed objections in trial. I have forgotten to file motions. I've filed motions with errors before. What else? In middle of trial, I've allowed evidence in that I shouldn't have and missed certain things. And for a long time, or in those moments, I felt it. I felt the pain of it. I was like, I can't believe I did this. Like, I know I'm better than this. How can I screw this up? And especially when you work with other people and you let them down, because it's not just you, right? Especially being a new attorney, you're always working with somebody new to show you the ropes. It was hard to fail in those moments because I easily attached it to my identity, and now has me wondering if I should even be practicing, or if this is the right thing I should be doing, of how bad I screwed up. So I say all that to say, I wish more attorneys told me this when I first started in terms of how they screwed up. And this isn't because misery loves company, and this isn't because I want other people to fail. It's because it allows young attorneys to ground themselves and understand that everybody messes up. Everybody fails. And as a young attorney, you can't help but feel like you're just in a sea in a room full of masters, where it's like you walk into a courtroom and the judge isn't talking to you like you're a month out of law school and just finished passing the bar. The judge is talking to you like you're an attorney who's been doing this and you should know the answer to this. And that's a frightening feeling, because when the judge said something and you have no clue, when I tell you no clue, and you're going to experience this, especially if you're a trial attorney, there's going to be moments where you have no clue what the answer is. You know how terrifying that is? You got opposing counsel, you got the clerk, you got the judge, you got the marshals, everybody standing around waiting to hear your answer. In your head, you legitimately don't know what they're talking about. Not the answer, you just don't know what they're talking about. And having to like maneuver and sometimes even be honest, like, Your Honor, I'm not sure on that. I'll go back and check. All those things. Those are nerve-wracking moments and could feel like failures that can define you. So in those moments, it's helpful when more seasoned attorneys go, yo, I screwed up too. This happened to me the other day. Somebody that I admire, one of the attorneys that I look up to, she told me like, yo, I definitely ignored an attorney's email before, and my supervisor tore into me because I was doing other things, like I was working on other things. I just didn't have time for her email, but it turned out to be like very urgent and important, and I just pushed it off to the side, and I got chewed in for that. And again, it didn't feel like a misery loves company thing. It was more so, this happens. Even with the best of intentions, you are going to fail. So I've done all that, right? The story I'm going to tell you today is about a fake case. I told you the upfront failures; those are real. Those are real moments on real cases, real stakes. Money's involved, people is involved, all that stuff. The story I'm gonna tell you today is a fake case, but I feel like it still applies because it's not just about actually practicing; it's about moments in this profession. So, long story short, I'll try to make it short. I did a 2 week child advocacy training. It was like basically a 2 week boot camp, basically, but this was with the top attorneys in the entire country. It's 2 weeks. Federal judges. There's a mock trial at the end of the boot camp. So the 2 weeks are leading up to this big mock trial. So we're in sessions about closing arguments, opening arguments, evidence, witnesses, objections, all aspects of trial. We're doing trainings, we're doing our own openings, we're doing our mocks, it's being edited, critiqued, all that stuff. So it's very intensive. You just a whole bunch of dope young attorneys who are also super talented, and you're being trained by seasoned chiefs of sections and divisions who are seasoned and crazy talented. So the pressure is high. So it was obviously a mock trial, but it's a lot of pressure to do well. At the very least, you don't want to embarrass yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's not just with the trial, but how you conduct yourself. And maybe this is a different lesson, but then the lesson is like, even in moments like that, you are still networking, you are still being interviewed, you are still being watched. So even in those moments where you feel like, oh, this is low stakes, I could just, no, you're still making connections. I made some dope connections there that I've benefited from since. You know what I'm saying? So like these things matter. So at this program, and we're working on our opening statements. The mock trial is based on a robbery. The defendant allegedly robbed this bank. He was late on his bills. His girlfriend dumped him. He was about to get evicted. All these different things was going on in his life. Long story short, we have to choose a theme. When it comes to opening statements, you have to choose a theme. I chose for my theme to be about time. As I sat with the case, I was like, let's make this about time. The reason why this guy is guilty because he was running out of time. He was late on his bills. He's about to be evicted. His girl was leaving him. He had to do all these things. Like there's a lot of things. There's a time pressure. So that's the motive right there. Let's focus on the motive of why this is the guy. And then we also include all the circumstantial evidence that ties to him, right? So I made a dope opening statement, if I do say so myself. And it's not just myself. It actually impressed a lot of people there. And people were ranting and raving about how good my opening was when we went through the test run, to the point where like other instructors and trainers came to me and said, oh, I heard about your opening statement, whatever. And it's nothing crazy. I hate when you do it. It wasn't crazy. Again, it was based on time. So I chose to start off the opening statement with tick, tick, tick. It was a attention grabber. When it comes to social media, if you're in the social media world, you'll know that everything is like a hook. You need to hook a person in the first 5 seconds. It's the same thing in a jury trial. When you're doing your opening, you want to hook the jury. They're going to be sitting there for hours. They probably just heard the judge speak for 30 minutes on the jury instructions, and they're tired already. They want to go home. They've been in the back room eating Cheez-Its and water the whole day. They want to go. They want to go home to their families. They want to chill. So you need to hook these people. You need to have them drawn into your story. So I chose the best way to do that, or creative way to do that, was to start off my opening tick, tick, tick. So when I started that, the judge's eyes like open, like, what is this guy doing? But it all tied in. It was fire. Dope. So everybody's going crazy about it at this training, right? At this boot camp. And which leads to a sub lesson in here, and why this episode is called The Highs and the Lows. You need to know how to succeed. I'm going to say that again. You need to know how to succeed and how to handle success, because the highs are temporary and the lows are temporary. We seem to think that we're just trying to get out of the lows so we can hurry up and just dwell and stay in the highs. That's not what this is. And it's not just, and this only doesn't apply to your profession. I think this applies all across life. Life isn't all highs, and it shouldn't be all highs. The goal is to stay at the medium. Because for me, at this training, I got caught up in the highs. I was feeling myself. Like, and how can you not, right? And it's not to beat myself up about it. I'm human. It felt good that people acknowledged my work and thought that it was good. Any human, and I hope that you experience this too, any human would enjoy that, right? So that was going on, dope. People were like showing up to my next hearing or whatever to hear the opening statement. It was crazy. It was weird. So I'm caught up in that. So now it's time for the actual mock trial, right? This is in front of a federal judge. The jury was actually high school students, which makes that even more nerve-wracking. For some reason, I'm like, damn, I gotta look cool in front of these kids, or I gotta be good. I gotta be cool and good. So that made it more pressured. All the instructors are there. Federal judge is there. Cool. We start the trial. I do my opening statement. Bodied it. Tick. I did the whole thing. I was moving around the room. I was looking the jurors in the eyes. You do all the tactics I was included. We're going through the trial now. We submitting evidence. We're doing the cross examinations. We doing the directs, getting evidence in, responding to objections, doing the whole thing. Going well. We get to the end of the trial, and it's defense's turn because we were prosecution, so defense now has to put on their case in chief. But before that, they could move for dismissal. They go, Your Honor, we move for dismissal because the prosecutors have rested their case, but they have not ID'd my client as in the courtroom. Like, they didn't identify him as the defendant in the case or the person in the case. Because when any witness goes on that stand, the person identification is important in trial. You need to prove, if you're a prosecutor and you're bringing a charge against this person, you need to prove the identity. Like, this person is the person that we say it is. If the person is John and John is the person in the robbery, or the person that the officer saw or the clerk saw, the clerk or the officer needs to go, did you see John? Yes. Would you recognize John if he was in the courtroom today? Yes. Do you see John in the courtroom today? Yes. Can you please point him out by where he's sitting in the courtroom and by an article of clothing? And the person goes, that's John right there sitting in the blue coat, whatever. And then I would go, Your Honor, let the record reflect that the officer has ID'd John as the person in the camera, or the person as John is John. You know what I'm saying? Identification. Don't ask me why that is. That's just how it goes, okay? But it's important because you need to know that this is the person, not some other person that you're stating who John is, and John is John. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense. So identification is very important in the trial, not because it's like what the whole case stands on, but it's like certain pillars that you need to prove in order for your case in chief to be substantiated, to have some life, to have some foundation. This person that you brought into the courtroom, that person that you've arrested, is the person who you're saying robbed this bank. Defense goes, Your Honor, the prosecution has not identified my witness. And my heart sunk, because this is like trial 101. You don't forget to ID the witness. You don't forget to do jurisdiction. Whenever you're doing jurisdiction, like if you know, like if the case is based in San Diego, you need to establish in trial, like very simply, one question. And where does this take place? In San Diego. Jurisdiction is done. You've checked that box. It's the same with identification. Do you see the guy in the courtroom today? Where's he seated and what's he wearing? Boom. Identification is done. I forgot to do that one thing, that very simple thing. And it wasn't just me, it was me and a trial partner. But again, we're a team. Either one of us should have remembered this thing. And that was my failure in that moment. And not only that, so after, so we go, he's 100% right. So because this is mock trial, we go, yo, the witness just left. Mind you, this is the last day. So the witness was like leaving to catch her flight. So we have to call her back. Luckily, her flight, we had some time. We had to call her back because we had to plead with the judge, like, yo, can we just bring her back, question her, have her ID the witness so we could check that box. They allowed it. We had to bring her back, whatever. After the trial was over, I go to the judge and I go, Your Honor, if this happened in a real trial, would you have dismissed the case? She said 100%. She said 100. Let me dead about. She said 100%. And my heart sunk. If it was already sunken, and then it went into like the sunken place. Like the heart went all the way down. And I'm like, damn. And again, because there was no stakes, there was nobody really on trial. It was a mock trial. I didn't take it to heart. It didn't like mess me up for weeks. But it is embarrassing to mess up like that in front of people you respect and people you look up to and people in high positions. So it was a failure. And while I was riding the highs of my success, I didn't know how to handle that success. I missed something so simple. And sometimes it's not even like you swing from like a high to a super duper low. You could be so high you forget such a minor detail like identification. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies, Love and Basketball. And if you know, there's a scene in there where Sanaa Lathan's character, I can't remember if it was in practice or if it was in an actual game. I believe it was in an actual game. One of her first games, she's cocky, she's feeling herself. She comes on the court, she has the ball, shoots a three, swishes it, goes straight in. Homegirl had her form up. She stayed there. She made the shot, sat there, and admired her shot. She looked at the ball go in. Yeah, kept her hand up while the whole team is getting back on defense. The ball, she's standing there with her hand up, and the ball is already being inbounded by the opposing team and running down the court. She doesn't get back on defense. The other team comes on the court, scores easily, obviously, because now it's a 5-on-4, and the coach benches her, like next play. And then in practice, that's why it was a game. In the next practice, she had Sanaa Lathan like stand there the whole practice with her hand up. And I felt like that was such an amazing depiction of not getting too caught up in your success. She made the shot. That's a success. She made the three. She swished it. But she didn't get back on defense. She was stuck in her win. She was stuck in her bucket that in a split second, she now just counteracted that because she wasn't able to come back to middle and get back on defense and prevent a possible shot. And I felt like that was the same thing that kind of happened at this training with me, where it's like I was riding the highs of that opening statement that I forgot something so little. And again, this is not to like ridicule myself for that or ridicule you if you go through something like this, because you will. We all will fail. It's about how fast can you get back to middle? And then the same thing from the failure. So once I forgot the identification, I could have just beaten myself up in that moment and then didn't adjust in that moment to go, hey, can we bring her back? Can we do this? How can we fix this? And that's another thing you're going to learn in this profession. You sometimes don't even have time to stay stuck in your lows. Like you have to think so fast in the moment how to repair the failure that you made, especially when it's in court. There's been moments where I answered something wrong or I didn't do something the right way. How can I react? How can I counteract and come back and find a solution to that thing? Another good analogy I like to use is when you're driving and you swerve a little bit to the side. Say there's something on the road and you swerve. You don't turn your wheel a full 360. You don't do that. What you do is you got to swerve out the way. You come back. And you recognize when you swerve out the way and come back, if you come back all the way too fast, you're going to turn your car over. The goal is to swerve out a little and swerve in a little. How can you bounce back? You don't swerve out and then do a full 360. No, because now you're doing too much. But how can you find these little bumps in the road? I bet I got to maneuver here. Bet I got to adjust here. Those are the things that matters. So I hope that story and those lessons make sense to you. And I hope it encourages you because, like I said, you are going to fail. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And how do you bounce back from that? I cannot. And while this was a fake mock trial, and while this was a mock trial and there were no stakes, there have been plenty of moments, like I said in the beginning, where I messed up in real life. There were real things on the line. and I screwed up. It wasn't completely detrimental to the case, but there was little moments where like, you should have known that. That was the wrong thing to do. How, and I was able to bounce back. And in those moments, honestly, there were a lot of times where I would take it home with me, where I was like, damn, like how can I mess up that bad? And I ran risk of allowing those things to define not even me as a lawyer, but me as a person. Like, damn, do I work hard enough? Like, should I have put more effort into this thing? Like, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Like, am I good enough to be here? It can affect you like that. And if you could take away anything from this episode, is that when you fail, do not attach it to who you are. Just see it as a lesson. If there's anything you could take away from what I said, that's all I want you to take away. When you fail, when you mess up, when you forget that filing, when you forget that meeting, when you forget to answer that email, when it happens, feel what you feel. But you do not change the identity of who you are. This does not change the type of lawyer that you are. It's how can you fix the mistake that you made and do better next time. Where it becomes who you are is when you continuously do it and you don't make the effort to repair and to build on the failure that you made. When you start to feel like, oh no, I'm fine, like this is fine, you don't recognize how that messed up your process. You don't recognize how that affected another person. That's when you start to get into like, okay, you're gonna continuously do this. Now is gonna be who you are. But one time doesn't make that who you are. Two times doesn't make it who you are. But how can you learn from that mistake and build on top of it? I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else left to say. I'm probably forgetting something else, but I don't know. I thought that would be cool to say as a young lawyer in this profession. I just thought that would be good to tell law students coming into this, young lawyers who are probably just like me, um, who are trying to figure it out. That's all, man. Like it's it's humbling to be in the presence of people who've been practicing for like 15, 20 years and walk into spaces and just feel like they just know all the answers. It's crazy. They just know they just know every code to the Rubik's Cube, and it makes you feel inferior. And that's okay because you just didn't you haven't put in 15, 20 years time. Like they earned the right to move like that because it's all reps. So I just feel like in this process when we're all trying to get reps, young lawyers, whether you're a law student 2 3 4 5 years in this thing and you're just trying to figure it out just like me, just know that we failing out here. We're failing and we're learning and we're getting better. So I hope that you do the same. Go out there and fail, go out there and learn, go out there and get better.